Today we're going to read chapter 8 of the World English Bible, and then later the King James Version. But starting with the World English Bible. In those days, when there was a very great multitude, and they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to himself, and said to them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have stayed with me now 3 days, and have nothing to eat. If I send them away fasting to their home, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come a long way. His disciples answered him, From where could one satisfy these people with bread here in a deserted place? He asked them, How many loaves do you have? They said, 7. He commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves. Having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to serve, and they served the multitude. They had a few small fish. Having blessed them, he said to serve these also. They ate and were filled. They took up 7 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. Those who had eaten were about 4,000. Then he sent them away. Repost? I heard this one already. The numbers were a little different, but we heard this one already. I get that. Yeah, he could have done it twice. This one has a few extra little details, like they had a few small fish, and so more than 2, I guess. But at least we know they're not giant fish, so there goes that theory. Darn, they got me. They took up 7 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. Like, that's a fun detail. Like, dude, there was so much food from these 7 loaves and few small fish that we had leftovers. But, like, I don't see how. It's the kind of thing where, like, we need details. Even if it's a miracle, I would like more details. Did God, like, duplicate the bread as he was breaking it? Like, you break a piece, but even as you're breaking it, it's like leaving a ghost of itself. And then when you remove that piece, there's like another piece ready to be broken off. Is it like where's the matter coming from? Where's this food coming from? Because, like, as far as we know, our universe follows certain laws, and, like, it's not that God can't violate these laws. The question is, did he? What is the story here? But we don't have those kind of information. We don't have very much information at all. All we know is it was not possible based on what we know. We already had that miracle. That's fine. We'll go on. Immediately he entered into the boat with his disciples and came into the region of Dalmanutha. The Pharisees came out and began to question him, seeking from him a sign from heaven and testing him. He sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Most certainly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation. The word translated generation here, genia, could also be translated people, race, or family. He sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? They want to know if they can trust you. You're claiming supernatural, like, powers. Can you prove it, is what they are asking. And that's not something to sigh at and try to dismiss. You should try to prove what you're claiming, because what you're claiming is insane. Now, to give the more generous interpretation, or what I think Jesus was going for, the truth is true whether or not you believe it. It doesn't necessarily have to be proven to be true, which I agree with, but, like, for the sake of our planet, for the sake of our species, we should try to figure out what is true. And, like, we all have the same senses, more or less. We all have the same tools, more or less. Like, they're closer than they're different, but we act like we're seeing a totally different world. And I think we need to slow down a bit and, like, really focus on what is real. He left them, and again entering into the boat, departed to the other side. They forgot to take bread, and they didn't have more than 1 loaf in the boat with them. He warned them, saying, Take heed, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. They reasoned with one another, saying, It's because we have no bread. Jesus, perceiving it, said to them, Why do you reason that it's because you have no bread? Don't you perceive yet, neither understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, don't you see? Having ears, don't you hear? Don't you remember? When I broke the 5 loaves among the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? They told him, 12. When the 7 loaves fed the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? They told him, 7. He asked them, Don't you understand yet? I'm not entirely sure I understand, but at least we have acknowledgement here that this is the second time he has duplicated bread. And that does make it harder to dismiss. Like I was trying to say, like, I thought that it was the same retelling of a story that we'd already gotten before, but no, it's the actual narrative is that he did this same thing multiple times, and it was a little bit different each time, but, like, still, you know, had the same effect, basically. And I kind of like that. That's interesting. I think he fed people. I don't think it was magic. Some of his miracles, I don't like get why he even did them. Like, why was he walking on the water in that one scene? I don't know. But like the ones about the feeding people, I mean, given his reputation, I could believe that if he put out a call, hey, we're gonna have a bunch of people here. If everyone could bring a little bit of bread, or if the people who can could bring extra, like he might have enough pull that he could get people to just bring more. It's unclear, we don't have the specific logistics of how the bread was handed out, where everyone was standing, who was looking where, you know, who was reaching into what baskets. Like anyone could have brought more bread, basically, is what I'm getting at. But it's still a great thing to do to share that much food with that many people on multiple occasions. We really do take for granted food. Like how important it is that we eat. People at the time had even fewer options, and had a lot fewer options than we do. And I'm not saying that they just went for the free food. It seems like they went for the content, but then because they had to come so far and because they were there so long, they got hungry. They didn't prepare properly because they're all stupid people. Well, or maybe they did, or maybe they brought bread and extra for their friends, and that's how it went so far. It's good. It's good to feed people. Feeding, eating is a great thing that any people can do together and like have a good time. It's very unifying in that way. It's something that we all have to do, and it's something that pretty much everyone enjoys. I think there are some people who aren't so big on the eating, and some people can't for medical reasons, of course. I don't fully understand what he's getting at here. He's saying, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. And so I think he's just saying, the bread that they grow. Basically, their beliefs are going to lead them to do bad things, and they're not people that you should trust or like align yourselves with, and they're gonna kill me eventually. But his disciples are dumb. They reasoned with one another saying, oh, it's talking about yeast because we don't got bread. He's like, I'm talking figuratively. It's a metaphor. And Jesus says, having eyes don't you see, having ears don't you hear. They do. The problem is they don't have brains. They don't have brains and they don't think. No, that's not fair. The problem is they don't think the same way that Jesus does. They are taking things very literally, and they're seeing things just in one particular way. Whereas there are always many ways to look at things, and one of those ways in this case is an analogy of sharing bread with people as sharing your message with people, and beware the messages of the Pharisees and Herod. He came to Bethsaida. They brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. He took hold of the blind man by the hand and brought him out of the village. When he had spat on his eyes and laid his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. He looked up and said, I see men, for I see them like trees walking. Then again he laid his hands on his eyes. He looked intently and was restored, and saw everyone clearly. He sent him away to his house, saying, Don't enter into the village, nor tell anyone in the village. So spitting in someone's eye, I don't think that's how you cure blindness. That said, if he had like some gunk stuck in there, like if they were just glued shut with goo, sure, maybe spitting would work. I don't know. I don't want to discredit that it's possible, as written. In this case, if I can't disprove it, I won't, even if it sounds stupid to me. Like, spitting on someone's eyes and laying hands on them, he could have cured this case of blindness that way, just because we don't have enough information about the case of blindness. And it's kind of interesting, like, these are the little details that almost make me think that, that give more credibility to these stories. He looked up and said, I see men, for I see them like trees walking. Like trees walking. That is an interesting way to put it. I don't really know what he means there. But he's basically saying, I can kind of see Jesus, but like not. And, it's like when you're at the eye doctor and they're like, and how about click now? Except he's, wiping goo out of his eyes or something. And then the guy's blindness was cleared. He sent him away to the house, and he said, don't tell anyone, which people just do not listen when Jesus says that. And I get it. Like, that is an exciting, life-changing thing. Like, a magic man cured my ailment. that I thought was going to be with me forever. But when that same magic man, like, I don't know, maybe Jesus didn't make it clear enough. Like, you guys, if you tell people what I did here, they're going to kill me. Like, if he had said that, maybe they would have done something different. I don't know, maybe they wouldn't have. And of course, before healing, he could be like, I will heal you, but before I do, you have to promise not to tell anyone. But that might not change anyone. They'd probably still tell people afterwards anyway, because people are stupid liars. Jesus went out with his disciples into the villages of Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked his disciples, Who do men say that I am? They told him, John the Baptizer, and others say Elijah, but others one of the prophets. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Peter answered, You are the Christ. He commanded them that they should tell no one about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke to them openly. Peter took him and began to rebuke him, but he, turning around and seeing his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, Get behind me, Satan, for you have in mind not the things of God, but the things of men. So Peter answered, You are the Christ. Having skipped many of the prophecies, I'm not sure what the Christ means, what the Christ is. I'm assuming Jesus lines up with some of the prophecies, which were early people being like, someday there will be someone smart who will figure this shit out. And Jesus is here figuring shit out, and people are like, that's the guy. Like, I think that's all that's happening here. Like, he's just the one who fits the bill, basically. It's not like God put him here to fill the prophecy. It's just the prophets knew that eventually, if humanity went on long enough, a person like this would show up. And a person like this has shown up, and they're saying, like, they think that's a divine, like, miracle, like a prophecy. Like, it's just a prediction. It's like a non-magical, non-divine, regular prediction based on things that they could see, that they thought about. As far as Jesus's specific prediction about suffering many things, being rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, like, I could see all of that as being just a natural result of confronting humanity's mistakes with the truth. Like, that's what happens. People resist it. People say, well, it's already fine the way it is. This is what I believe and it makes me feel good. But, like, it's not right. It's not true. And when you try to speak up against that, they just want to shut you down. They don't even want to think about it. They don't even want to pretend it could be true, which is dangerous. But then he says, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And, like, I could even understand being killed for, speaking out against these beliefs his whole life. And after 3 days rise again. And that's where I'm just like, no. At that point, either you faked your death because you knew it was coming and you put someone else up there, and 3 days later you were like, here I am alive again. I don't think he was raised from the grave 3 days later. We'll talk about it more when we get there, I guess. And Peter is trying to be like, nah, Jesus, they won't do that, because, like, I am assuming he just, wants his friend to be okay. He doesn't want to believe that the people of his time would do something like this. But Jesus is like, dude, be real. They're gonna kill me. He called the multitude to himself with his disciples and said to them, Whoever wants to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whoever will lose his life for my sake and the sake of the good news will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? For what will a man give in exchange for his life? For whoever will be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man also will be ashamed of him when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whoever will lose his life for my sake and the sake of the good news will save it. Yeah, and that's something I kind of mentioned in the video about, I actually don't remember which video, but I talked about selfishness and about, like, buying things that you don't need, and, like, what are you living for? And I think that a lot of people are just living for themselves, or even just in survival mode. Like, you've been pushed into survival mode by this very oppressive, shitty society that we live in, and, like, your main goal is just getting by. And that's not really a goal in and of itself. Like, it's good, of course, you have to stay alive, but if you're, like, trying so hard to protect yourself, to guard yourself, to gain things for your own, like, benefit and not the rest of the world, not, like, engaging with the rest of the world, it's not going to work. It's the weird thing where when you try to force something or control it too much, you get, like, the opposite effect. If you try to prop yourself up too much, even if you really think that you've got something good, you're just going to fall down. Like, stop trying to prop yourself up and just do the good thing. Like, stop making it about you, basically. And whoever will lose his life for my sake and the sake of the good news will save it. And my interpretation of that is the truth is more important than anyone's lives. Yours, mine. I don't necessarily think you should always tell the truth if it's going to cost someone's life. Sometimes lying is a good thing. If you're lying to save someone's life, if you're lying to people who want to oppress you, or, evil people, basically people who are doing bad, that can be good. But basically, big picture, you understand that your life is less important than the truth. And it's not that you would throw your life away to tell the truth at any cost. It's that you understand its value, and you understand that the truth will exist even after you're gone, and that the truth affects all of us. It's the thing that unites us. It's the world that we share. I keep saying it, and I'm not sure how to make it more clear. I think it's that acute fear response that I was talking about in some of the early religious videos, where you're living for yourself. Like, you're so focused, you tie everything to your own survival, basically. And that makes everything way too important, like way too high stakes. It just makes it harder to function, and it makes you make worse decisions. But it can be really hard to change that if it really is based on that acute fear response, that survival instinct. That is a powerful drive. And I think that's the main reason we've been encountering so much resistance. And I think that's the main reason that people exhibit so much resistance to the truth, is they're convinced that their current beliefs are critical to their survival, and they don't want to change. They don't want to even think about changing them. They don't even want to risk changing them. And that's a very unhealthy way to live. That's a very locked down way that's not open to growth at all. So I wouldn't recommend it. Now I'll read the same thing in the King James Version. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples unto him, and saith unto them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away fasting to their own houses, they will faint by the way, for divers of them came from far. And his disciples answered him, From whence can a man satisfy these men with bread here in the wilderness? And he asked them, How many loaves have ye? And they said, 7. And he commanded the people to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves, and gave thanks, and brake, and gave to his disciples to set before them, and they did set them before the people. And they had a few small fishes, and he blessed, and commanded to set them also before them. So they did eat, and were filled, and they took up of the broken meat that was left 7 baskets. And they that had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. And straightway he entered into a ship with his disciples, and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. And the Pharisees came forth, and began to question with him, and seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit, and saith, Why doth this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall no sign be given unto this generation. And he left them, and entering into the ship again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they in the ship with them more than 1 loaf. And he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and of the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. And when Jesus knew it, he saith unto them, Why reason ye, because ye have no bread? Perceive ye not yet, neither understand? Have ye your heart yet hardened? Having eyes see ye not, and having ears hear ye not, and do ye not remember? When I brake the 5 loaves among 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments took ye up? They say unto him, 12. And when the 7 among 4,000, how many baskets full of fragments took ye up? And they said, 7. And he said unto them, How is it that ye do not understand? And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up, and said, I see men as trees walking. After that he put his hands again upon his eyes, and made him look up, and he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, Neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. And Jesus went out, and his disciples, into the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And by the way he asked his disciples, saying unto them, Whom do men say that I am? And they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elias, and others one of the prophets. And he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Peter answereth and saith unto him, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man of him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, and of the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spake that saying openly, and Peter took him, and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. So yeah, that was chapter 8. Jesus still sharing bread with people and prophesying his own death. Seemingly annoyed with his disciples, or like, they're not getting it. Did he pick the right people? It seemed like that random Greek lady would have been a better choice. And yeah, I don't think Jesus was divine. I don't think he prophesied his own death this specifically. It's, again, hard to say without more details. I do think he could have seen it coming to a degree. I don't really have a lot of context for the time. They mentioned Caesarea, which is like Caesar, a Roman name. But yeah, it seems like Herod and the Pharisees don't like Jesus and would like bad things to happen to Jesus. So we'll probably see more of that going forward. Next time we'll take a look at chapter 9. Thank you for watching chapter 8. Have a good day and goodbye.